What's up, Brawlers? This is Mr.Din, and today I'm being joined by Mike from BitBeam Cannon as we have a peek at Metro Siege. In this video, we will be chatting about the features of the game and plans for the project as we play through a couple of levels with two of the three protagonists, Alex and Kim. Hope you enjoyed this preview of the game. Leave a like, subscribe, and tell us what you think of the game so far. Questions and feedback will be read during the upcoming interview. Let's get into it.
Hi everyone, I am Mike from BitBeam Cannon, and I am working with some really talented people on this beat-em-up game called Metro Siege, and I am here with Mr. Din, and look forward to playing with you and showing everyone what we've got so far for the game. We've got the first 3 levels in pretty good shape.
Sweet. Glad to be playing with you today.
Yeah. So let's go to 2-player mode and go ahead and pick whichever character you'd like.
I think I'm gonna stick with Kim.
Okay. The third unlockable character that you can play as is already made, but we're keeping him a secret for now. It'll be revealed at a later date.
Looking forward to him. I would like to ask, I mean, if I'm able to, if maybe he's a grappler?
Yes, actually.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah, he's the biggest guy, and he definitely, he's a really good kind of tank of a character. In fact, his special move is kind of fun, where like the desperation move, where you just press both buttons at the same time, so long as you have that blue meter under your name up in the HUD there.
Right.
You could do a desperation move that instead of taking some of your health, it just uses a little bit of that blue meter, which you can build back up just by beating up enemies. Yeah. So what were we just talking about before I mentioned that? Oh, the desperation move. Yeah, the third unlockable character. Instead of his kind of special move being a desperation move, which hits enemies on all sides, he kind of goes into a brute force rage attack that is directed forward, but like the gimmick to his move is he basically becomes invulnerable from all sides and just does a very strong kind of forward dash attack. So it's kind of like aiming a cannon ahead of you, you know what I mean?
Right.
Not in a sci-fi way, but he'll just like do a strong brute force attack forward instead of doing a typical desperation move, which is purely designed to get the enemies off of you that might be surrounding you at the time.
He already sounds like a fun character.
Yeah, like I really wanted to make sure that all 3 like core selectable characters play very differently from each other. So Kim, obviously, she has the greatest speed, but does not have any grappling at all. So she plays very different. You'll see, like, she feels a lot more, just high speed, slippery, move in and out, and just come in with these fast attacks. Whereas Alex is the more middle of the road guy that can do some nice grappling, but he hasn't really focused. So he's the medium speed, medium grappling, all that stuff, medium power. And then the third unlockable character, he's more of the tank character that moves the slowest, but if he gets his hands on you, you're in trouble.
Right.
And yeah, so we really wanted to make sure that there's a really strong distinction. I should mention to people watching, because like you've seen the video I made explaining gameplay. Here comes the level 1 boss, good old Officer Bob. That's an inside joke. This game, it's not just a retro style game. This game will be out for modern platforms, but it also works on classic Amiga computers, and someday we hope to make a Mega Drive port, or aka Genesis in America. So on the Amiga, instead of using sprites for all the moving characters, they tend to use blitter objects, which we call bobs. So his name is Officer Bob, as an inside nod to the kind of Amiga computer heritage of this game.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, a lot of the graffiti in the game is actually referencing the Amiga computer's custom graphics hardware and sound hardware. But anyway, anyone that just cares about beat 'em up games, you don't have to know or worry about Amiga computers. Like I said, this game is designed to just be as fun as we could make it, regardless of platform, and it's going to be available for and run very well on modern computers, and hopefully we'll get it on consoles and Switch and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I like small references and stuff like that. Like even if they're like obscure, because
kind of Easter egg.
It's kind of like the fun thing about like the classic games as well. Like they have those obscure references that you probably wouldn't know unless you really look for it.
Right. Yeah, we were chatting, so we might not have even noticed. But when Officer Bob pulls up in his car, he plays on the cliche of cops eating donuts, and he puts a box of donuts on the hood of his car. And then if you actually get his health halfway down, then he'll make his way to the hood of the car and will actually eat the donuts to get some health back. So that actually happened while we were chatting. I don't know if anyone viewing caught that.
I saw the donuts, but I didn't see him put it on the hood.
Yep, yeah, he put them on the hood of the car, and then he went back later and ate the donuts. So also, he just switched. When you get his health halfway down, he switched to this other mode. He goes off screen to the back of the car, and then you see the car shake a little bit, like he got something from the back of the car, and that's when he comes back with this taser and riot shield.
Oof.
So originally he didn't have... There we go, we beat him.
Nice.
Or did we? So at the beginning, the intro, we had kicked a gun out of his hand, and we're going to get that gun now that we think we beat him.
Yeah, he moves pretty fast for a big guy.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to my friend and collaborator at BitBeam Cannon, Corey, for designing and making the art and animations for Officer Bob. He did such a great job. I love that comical run he does down the subway stairs. Yeah, I should mention the some of the differences between Metro Siege and the vast majority of other beat-em-up games. I think I already started to mention, so that you don't accidentally grab things, there's actually a mechanic in this game where you hold the attack button and tap a direction to do special things. So in order to grab a pickup that's on the ground, you line up with it, you basically get over it, and you hold attack and tap down. That way you don't accidentally grab what we like to call a trash turkey at BitBeam Cannon.
Right.
Or, a pickup for health that is a nice, fresh, entire chicken or turkey dinner that is for some reason hiding in a destructible trash can. So yeah, that way you don't accidentally grab a full health regen when your friend desperately needs it and your health is already full. And it's the same thing with grabbing. For characters that can grab, you hold the attack button and tap forward, and as you can see what I'm doing here, your character lunges forward to attempt to grab, and that way you don't accidentally grab an enemy when you're trying to get out of the way of some fast-moving object that'll be coming at you later in the game. That used to drive me nuts playing games like Streets of Rage 3, which is a high-quality game, but it's very frustrating when you're just walking up to try to get out of the way of an oncoming rail car type thing that's going to do a lot of damage to you, and your character just grabs an enemy who happened to walk in the same direction as you in that moment. And it's like, so we actually tried to eliminate your character you're supposedly controlling doing things you had no intention of doing as much as possible while keeping it intuitive. And I've got to say, beat 'em ups are my favorite genre, and my favorite by far was Streets of Rage 2. I think it had the overall best balance of all of them. So all of the things I loved of Streets of Rage 2 are in here. The being able to jump backwards, attack backwards, land on your feet You know that great trick in Streets of Rage 2 and 3. If you get thrown by an enemy and hold jump, I think, and tap, is it up when you're about to hit the ground?
Yeah,
You'll
it's up
actually
and
land
jump.
on your feet. Yeah, you'll land on your feet and not take any damage. That's in there. But then we further added some of the stuff that was tended to be only in more obscure beat 'em up games that I really loved, which are the ability to hit enemies while they're down on the ground, and the ability to block and counterattack, which the gameplay mechanic that influenced that the most is actually Knights of the Round by Capcom. Have you played that?
Yeah, I played
that
a
game?
bit of that.
Yeah, like it's weird. A lot of those old arcade games, there's special moves hidden in there that are critical to make the game fun, but you'd never know it.
Yeah,
So, all
that's
right,
what I did
we're
notice when
already.
playing it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. I was just going to say we're actually nearing the end of what we've got done so far. This level 3 is by far the least polished. It's just not incomplete. Sorry about that. But so the enemies, their AI here and their behavior is not finished. And so basically in this level, you're going from subway car to subway car, still chasing Bob. You could see him watching there, hoping, hoping that the general thugs are going to beat us. And then when we kill the last thug in the train car, then he goes like, "Oh crap!" makes like an "oh crap" face and runs away. So I'm gonna reset back to the title screen because I don't want to kind of spoil things. Because the cinematic intro to the final showdown with Officer Bob is half finished. So in a minute I'm gonna quit. Yeah, so I'll actually quit back to the splash right now. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
But we could play some more a little bit. Maybe you'd like to give Alex a try this time.
Yeah, let's give I'll give
And,
Alex a bit of a try.
All right, so let's go into 2-player.
But yeah, I wanted to comment on that, the fact that you have holding button and using directions to do these different mechanics. It's something that I talked about on the channel a while back. Utilizing like minimal controls for multiple mechanics. And I think I really like that you did that here, as well as like incorporate stuff from Streets 2 and Final Fight 3, where you can do like the backdash you see here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the backdash is fantastic. That's another thing we really have planned for Metro Siege is making really rewarding the player not only in gameplay but in visual feedback for doing cool things, for playing with style. So for example, in the later boss fights in the game, if you do some really nice counterattacking, then there will be a special animation not only in the enemy, but potentially even in the player. So like, let's say you're fighting a boss later in the game, and you do a really nicely timed back hop, followed immediately by a forward attack. So if you're hopping backwards and then immediately hold forward and tap attack, as soon as you're done hopping back, you'll come in with a strong forward attack. And so if you do things like that at really nice times when the enemy is lunging at you, just like I did to that guy, right, it'll trigger a special animation in the bad guy to really reward the player and let them know, yeah, you really messed him up good. You played well with style. You hit the guy while he was moving forward. You used his own force against him, so to speak. So basically, Metro Siege is me getting the chance as a lifelong fan of beat 'em ups, of taking everything I loved in, like, I've played almost every beat 'em up over the decades that there is, and every little thing that I liked or thought, wow, that could have been so cool if they had done it a little differently, that's all the stuff I'm trying to put in there. But it's also faced with that extra challenge of also making the game legit retro. Like, we have to constantly wrestle when we're developing Metro Siege with getting everything we want to fit in the extremely limited memory and graphical horsepower of this classic system. So, that was part of why I got together with these particular developers, is to not just kind of reinvent the wheel of classic retro games and make retro style games, but with none of the limitations that the original people that made things like Streets of Rage faced. And that'll also make it easier because we built the game based on like 1980s 16-bit consoles. It'll be much easier to make a beautiful port that doesn't lose any quality to the Genesis / Mega Drive.
I'm definitely looking forward to the Mega Drive port. I don't have an Amiga, but I mean I might pick one up just to play this one here.
Awesome. Well, we are working on other games that happen to work on Amiga, but like I said, if you're just a fan of retro games and like really good arcade and console style games, we are working on other games that will run on modern systems. So you could get it on Steam or eventually for Switch and things like that. But if you really want to play a hardcore true retro version that will be virtually identical on classic systems, this game will be out for Amiga nearly on day one as it comes out for modern systems, and eventually like I said, Mega Drive version, maybe more. We'd love to make an enhanced version someday for Neo Geo. What an amazing console that was / arcade system.
That'd be great.
We'll see if we could pay attention to the donut this time for anyone who missed it the first time around. So this game isn't about like, there's a current trend where beat 'em ups have become popular again because of things like Streets of Rage 4. Like, we're making this game because of our love for the genre and wanting to really take what we thought they nearly perfected in Streets of Rage 2 and add all of the features that I thought were the most fun in other beat 'em up games, to really expand how each player can play with their own style. You could play very aggressively. You can rely on maneuverability no matter what character you're playing and really good timing and footwork, or you could be really aggressive. You could play through the whole game not relying at all on blocking or counterattacking, or you could make that your number one gameplay style. There's a huge amount of variety in what you could do. Even though the game's input is not that complicated, it should only take a few minutes to get used to your moveset, but then learning how much you could do and how much you can mix things up, and like I always love that in the game, to keep it fun and interesting. Like just coming up with these arbitrary challenges for myself, like no, I'm gonna beat this guy, like the final hit against him is going to be a back attack or a counter attack or something like that, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
we just really wanted to make sure you've got tons of opportunities like that, and like to really emphasize that, like I said, we're going to reward players. The more you play it, you're going to get you're going to discover, oh wow, if I do this, which requires real careful timing, there's going to be this extra kind of bonus style reward built in, not just by like a pop-up text on the screen saying like, ooh, plus 500 points for playing with style. Like actually in the kind of visual storytelling of the game, you'll get that cool extra animation of the boss, like, whatever, losing a tooth or really getting knocked back and grabbing his gut or his face or something like that. And actually we plan on, there's going to be a lot of Easter eggs where only if a super specific thing happens, if the player does something super specific, something will happen in the game that you never saw before, just to add to that replayability. Like, after having played many, many times, you'll just discover this new thing. A lot of times they'll be either cool or comical. So, like, that's another aspect of this game. We're really trying to not just be influenced by all of the great beat-em-up games that came from back in the 16-bit era, but to go further back to the actual Hollywood vigilante movies that came out in the 80s and early 90s that are what inspired those great companies and designers to make this whole genre in the first place. So you'll notice even already more of a cinematic flair to this game. It's very down to earth. There's not like crazy, oh, it turns out, the boss is a robot in disguise, or, aliens suddenly in one of the levels. We're not doing stuff like that. It's more down to earth things that you would see in a movie that was trying to take itself a little more seriously, meaning in a non-sci-fi way, and just doing, like, the creativity in Metro Siege is not like, oh, just raw, boundless creativity where you're just doing whatever you want and throwing it in the game. Like, oh, look, you're fighting a dinosaur now. It's different. It's within the scope of fairly close to reality or exaggerated Hollywood reality. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
how can we like do fun little things like the donut gag? But there's going to be several more that I won't spoil right now. Just these fun little moments that feel more like a fun Hollywood vigilante movie.
Yeah, I feel like the visuals definitely tell a story. I'm paying attention. That's probably why I'm getting the crap beat out of me right now, because I'm paying attention a lot to the background, like just like watching all the stuff going on in the background and looking at the little Easter eggs and stuff. I can definitely say I'm a lot better with Kim between the two of them so far.
All right, yeah, that's Kim is probably the best character for a beginner to control until you get used to the full move set and grappling. But I've got to say for sure, once you get used to all three characters, you can play extremely well and survive and dole out damage at about the same rate regardless of which character you're playing. But as far as pick up and play for the first time, Kim is the most easy to dodge getting hit and dole out some really good damage with her tonfa and things like that. So yeah, just to quickly, if you hold attack and tap up, you'll do your back attack. If you do both buttons at the same time, and if you have some of that blue meter, you'll do your desperation move. And if you do successfully counterattack, that gives you back a little bit of health and builds back your special meter more. So again, it's more of that rewarding the player for playing well, for relying on really good timing and decision making.
I like that idea.
We also went through a lot of pains. Oh yeah, so there's when an enemy is down, yes, if you hold attack and tap down, you'll hit them. But you can also jump and tap down twice while you're in the air really quickly, and that'll do like a stomp, like a knee stomp, or an elbow drop in the case of the third character. But what's cool about that is it does big damage to the enemy, but later enemies later on in the game, they'll also be able to roll out of the way, and if you slam down on the concrete with your knees or your elbow, you'll hurt yourself and you'll be in a stunned state for a second. So again, it's rewarding risk versus reward. Do I want to risk doing an airdrop move at the cost of, if they roll out of the way, I'm going to take some damage and be open to getting attacked? So there's a lot of that kind of nuance built into the gameplay. Another thing we did, if you noticed, in almost every other beat-em-up game ever, I think everyone, a group of 5 enemies can get in front of you, and you could just do your jab attack, and magically you're hitting all 5 enemies at the same time.
Right.
Whereas in this game, you're only actually hitting one guy at a time with your basic attacks. But if you whack a guy strong enough that he goes reeling back or falling back, that will bump the other enemies. Or if you throw an enemy into other ones, that can knock down several enemies at a time.
Oh, okay.
So again, it's making it a little more realistic in its kind of physics and gameplay mechanic.
I do actually appreciate that you went as far as to have an alternative to, being able to hit all the enemies at once. Because there are a couple other games that do something similar. Like I know DD Crew, for example, Probably not the best example because that one's a pretty janky game. You can only hit one enemy at a time, but there's no alternative to like knocking back the enemies unless you're doing a running attack or throwing them into each other.
Yeah. All right, I need to quit again. Sorry about that.
Oh, no
and
worries.
if people watching noticed, in some of those subway cars, there's passengers that are scared, hiding behind a newspaper, pretending to not see the violence and carnage that's going on in front of them. But just before I quit and restarted in one of the later train cars, subway cars, the people sitting hiding behind the newspaper throw the newspaper to the side, and it's actually more thugs coming in. So at first it looks like just, it's NPCs in the background, like scared passengers, like the other scared passengers, but it's actually enemies waiting to try to ambush you. So like I said, there's going to be a lot of little surprises like that, and some of them will only happen in pretty much every game BitBeam Cannon makes. If you make a really specific situation happens, something will happen that otherwise you'll never see. And we're hoping, I don't know if you remember from like the 8-bit Nintendo days, there were things like that where once you learn you can do something, you start really looking in every level for, is there a chance? Like in the Castlevania games, it's like, maybe I can get up there if I do this special thing. Like, maybe I can actually get to this seemingly inaccessible part of the level. Maybe there's something hidden there and things like that.
Yeah.
So we really love... we feel like that's kind of the philosophy behind the games that BitBeam Cannon is making, is we want to create games that are legit retro, that feel like a AAA game that you just somehow never saw back in the day or never heard of. You know what I mean? Like, what if you suddenly wake up in a parallel dimension and there's like a different Capcom that made the same quality games, but they're all different and you never played them before. Imagine that excitement. You know what I mean? And we feel like in the... we might as well, I guess, play one more time while I'm rambling. But I'm pretty much... maybe I'll make this my last point. I don't know how long you want this video to be.
Yeah, we can give it another run.
All right. So, but what was I saying? Did I select? Okay, good. You want to be Kim, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Kim's my favorite so far. I'm definitely looking forward to the grappler though. Like anybody who's watched my channel knows that I'm a big grappler heavy guy.
Yep. Well, as a fellow lover of the genre, I will give you an open invitation. I would love to secretly play again with you sometime on Parsec, let you play the unlockable character that no one has seen before, as long as you promise not to leak it to anyone.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
I'd love more of your feedback. That's the other thing I was going to say, is to us, gameplay is key, and there seemed to be, just as games were being forced artificially completely into 3D, like once they could do that 3D technology, there was this big marketing pressure to only make 3D games. And that was even the policy for things like PlayStation 1 at first. No, make all 3D games. You know what I mean? We want to show off that this game can't be done in our previous generation consoles or in our competitors' consoles. But around the same time, there was this giant shift in the perception of what makes a game valuable, or what makes a game, kind of replay value was almost forgotten and replaced with the concept of, if it doesn't take you 50 hours to beat the game in the first place, then it's a cheap game, or it's, you know what I mean? It doesn't have value.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, it's like all the Metroidvania games, and don't get me wrong, I love that genre too, but there became this big attitude that started in marketing, but the entire kind of culture ended up adopting, maybe unknowingly, that, what? This game, you could beat it in a half hour? I'm not going to pay, full price for a game I could beat in a half hour. Meanwhile, they'll buy a game and play a game that has only a half hour worth of actual original gameplay, but you have to spend 40 other hours grinding in the forest to build up experience points or backtracking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, what about a game where the developers spent just as much time developing the game, but spending that time constantly refining and tweaking the gameplay and adding new moves and new gameplay features to really allow the player to play with all kinds of style and actually have fun the whole time? And, you know, like, our focus is try to make the game so fun and give you so much replayability options that you might want to even though you can beat the game once you're good in 15, 20, 30 minutes, what if the game is so fun later that day you want to play it again? To us, that's real value and replay value for an action game.
Yeah, that's what always kept me coming back to Streets of Rage 2 and a number of other classic games.
Yep. Yeah, and that's actually a problem even in this genre, was sometimes because they didn't keep introducing enough new gameplay elements, almost every game in this genre, the one that's probably the least guilty of this is Streets of Rage 2, which is, again, one of the reasons it's my favorite. It didn't overstay its welcome. Like, I'll get this itch and I'll be like, oh, I got to play Streets of Rage 2, and I make it through the game without it ever really getting boring or feeling like, oh, I'm just finishing this game because I don't want to feel like I wasted the last however many, half hour of my life. But I'm not having fun anymore. A lot of the games were like that. Like, even Streets of Rage 3, it was longer. It took longer to beat. And by the time I'm near the end of the game, I'm just like, I'm not playing for fun anymore. I'm playing so I don't feel like I wasted my time. Like, I want to beat the game now that I've gotten this far. But it started getting too repetitive, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. I've come across that with so many different games.
Yeah, exactly.
It extends for so long, and you kind of get like halfway through it, and you're like, man, I don't know if I want to keep playing.
Yeah, you're just lining up and button mashing too often with a lot of the beat-em-ups. And if that's all you can do, and there's such a limited amount of play style you could switch between, or like, oh, I'm gonna beat this guy this way now, and and think like definitely alternate paths are a great way to add a lot of real good replay value, so long as that alternate path doesn't just look a little different. Like, give us a new boss to fight that really behaves very differently, that you have to fight very differently. You know what I mean? You can actually, if two players coordinate really well, you can keep Officer Bob from ever eating the donuts or from ever going into mode 2 because he needs to go to the car to do either. So if you coordinate really well and kind of bounce him back and forth between each other, you can keep him from ever doing it and beat him all the quicker.
I like that idea. That's a good co-op feature.
Yeah, and again, it's like one of those things you're not going to think about or try or get good enough to do until several replays. So that's the kind of replay value we really want to bring to the table with our games.
Yeah, I am definitely looking to play more of this than especially the grappler, because you're a Streets of Rage 2 fan, so you probably already know the power of Max. And I would definitely probably be having a lot of feedback based on that alone. And of course, I've played some other beat 'em ups that had some unique features. I know Raging Justice, while that game has a lot of secret stuff that you wouldn't notice because, like, I know the gameplay's like a turn off for a lot of people. But there's hidden items. There's different. There's like a rest feature that kills enemies immediately and give you health items and stuff like that.
Right.
I like going into a game and even if the combat is a little weird or wonky, just finding those secrets. So having something like this where the gameplay is good, feels smooth, and then also has all those secrets is it's a good thing.
Yeah, that means a lot coming from a fellow real fan of the genre. And especially, I'm super happy with the fact that you said the gameplay feels smooth, because right now you're playing in a worst situation. We're playing over Parsec over the
Yeah.
internet, and you're in the US and I'm in France right now. So the amount of lag is giving you a drastically less good experience than if you had an actual copy of the game and playing with someone closer to your time zone.
Yeah, funny
And
enough,
by the
it's
way, the game. Yep, go ahead.
oh yeah, it's funny. It's actually playing pretty smooth considering. Like, I noticed a bit of lag. I am having a little bit of input lag where I'm like, I know like a split second from I press the button and something happens, but
Right.
it is surprisingly smooth.
Well, that's fantastic. So it'll be much better once you have a real copy of the game and can use the built-in. It has online multiplayer support built into the game itself, but obviously you would need a copy of the game, and we're not ready to distribute copies to anyone yet.
Of course.
So yeah, it has that feature built in, and it's cross-platform, which is pretty crazy. Like a real hardcore Amiga nut playing on a real 30-year-old Amiga computer could invite someone that is playing their game eventually on the Switch or on Windows on Steam and play seamlessly with someone that's playing the same game on a 30-year-old computer. So
that's actually very huge, especially for an Amiga game.
Yeah, it's pretty much unheard of for a game to be that cross-platform, not just across modern platforms, but including a 30-plus-year-old vintage 16-bit system. So, and hopefully we could pull off. That would be amazing. I don't know how feasible that is once we can make a Genesis/Mega Drive port. I don't know how feasible it would be to be able to play the game between an Amiga and the Amiga version and the Mega Drive version, because they're such different systems that have such different abilities. We don't want in any way, like when we make a port, we make sure we always use the powers of that particular system to their fullest. So this version has some color fidelity and sound fidelity that the Mega Drive is not capable of. But at the same time, the Mega Drive can do things that the Amiga was not capable of. So when we do our ports, we're going to make sure we hide the limitations of that system as best we can. And any way that system was more powerful, we'll make sure we take advantage of that and improve the game in those ways. So because of that kind of standard to quality, like maybe on the Mega Drive, we can get one more enemy on screen at a time or something like that.
Yeah.
And then therefore we would want to do that and add that enhancement that the Mega Drive is capable of. And then there would be a break in the gameplay. But what we'll probably do once we do make the Mega Drive port is also make that available on modern systems. And then you would be able to, one person maybe could play on Mega Drive or emulated Mega Drive with someone that's on a Switch or a PC or something. But of course, then you would need to hook up your real Mega Drive to the internet. I don't know how possible that is.
I was actually going to bring that up because I know with Poprium, there's actually a port for the MegaWire. I don't know if they're ever going to get around to releasing that out. But if they do, that would allow for connection to the internet.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. We're all about that level of crazy support and additional features to make the game as accessible and kind of shareable with other players as possible. But anyway, like I think I'll start. I'll wind down my rambling about how obsessed I am with making, just as fun a beat 'em up as I can, so we could end the play session there. Oh yeah, I was going to say the guy just threw the newspaper. But the newspaper in this latest build of the game, the newspaper when you throw it is glitched out, so it had corrupted graphics when you threw the newspaper. So that'll be fixed. But like I said, this is the least polished level so far, both in the fact that it still has some bugs and, more importantly, the gameplay, the AI. And that's something that's going to happen big time, which we've hardly done at all yet, is balancing gameplay of each level to make sure there's a really nice learning curve, and difficulty is spot on, and make sure that the different enemies behave differently enough to really allow and even force the player to play different ways against different enemies. Like in future levels, up there it automatically reset there, so that's fine. But
Oh, it starts back at the first level. Okay.
yeah, I forgot. I thought this version had the unfinished intro to the level 3 boss in it. But yeah, I forgot that that's not the case yet. You need to go into the menu and in level select like a high number level, and it'll skip to that intro so that we could debug it quickly and tweak it.
Awesome.
But anyway, so yeah, I think I don't want to keep you hostage forever. I could literally talk forever about my passion for this game and the genre in general.
Oh, no
and
worries.
just
It's
my
been an
love
absolute pleasure.
All right, so yeah, I'm really happy that you're liking the game so far as a fan of the genre. And all I could say is more to come. Future enemies, they'll be able to block and counterattack. They'll be able to roll out of the way. In fact, I'll do the special hidden move to land on the ground. You could see I could roll up and down by tapping up and down, and then I get up when I want to by pressing attack.
So-
The enemies will be able to do the same thing in future levels, so they'll be able to dodge your low attacks, and if you do that low attack that
How do you
the knee
fall
drop,
down like that? Because I've done it a couple times
Yeah.
by accident.
accidentally, yes, you have to wait until the very last second when you're in the air, hold down and press attack, and you'll basically do like a crazy Jackie Chan double kick. Like you'll kick out with both feet at the expense of you land on your
Oh, okay.
back
I see.
kind of hard, and you take a tiny bit of damage. But there will be some enemies where they do kind of an up high attack, and if you do that move, that'll be one of those special gameplay circumstances where that gets under the guard, so to speak, of that enemy, and it'll do extra damage to them and trigger a special animation. So if you have the extra little bit of hit points that you can risk, then you could do that special attack, take a little damage yourself, but it would be like a really cool way to beat that boss and stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff kind of hidden in the game.
That sounds really good. I I like the little nitbits there that you just kind of figure out as you play.
Yeah, like I said, to me it's all about once you've played the game, you start getting ideas like, oh man, I could do this. Like you could either just do a back jump and kick the guy in the face as he's coming in toward you, or you could hop back and come back in with your strong built-in counterattack. Or for many attacks, you could do the built-in block and counterattack. There's so many ways. Oh, also from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I took the fact, and Brawl Brothers for the Super Nintendo, I took the fact that you can jump up and down and on diagonal, so you could come in from an odd angle and drop kick the enemies, which is, for general enemies, it's very successful. And it's a great way to kind of come in and help the player too. If they're in a bad situation, you could quickly fly in from an off angle and kick the guy to stun him if he's like got your friend grabbed or anything. So basically, as much opportunity to avoid accidental behaviors for the player, and to give them a huge amount of control and flexibility with their gameplay. That's what this is all about. And just taking everything that was either already great and fun out of every beater I've ever played or beat 'em up, but also, like you said, you were playing an obscure game. I forget which one you mentioned that a lot of people don't like, but there's some cool aspects. There's some cool things they did. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's a lesser known game, or even a game that's well known and did something really cool, but they kind of dropped the ball a little bit. They didn't really perfect the timing, so it's not satisfying. But it was a cool concept, and if they had spent a little more time polishing the timing and the animations, it could have been really cool. Like, that happens a lot. And like I was mentioning, Knights of the Round, almost no one knows this that has played the game. But if you tap attack and back away from the enemy at the exact time they attack you, you will do a block and be invulnerable for about a half a second, and your character will flash. And while your character's flashing, if you tap attack again, you'll do a special counterattack that does extra damage. But almost no one knows that. I discovered that accidentally. And it was such a cool feature that it's what inspired directly the block and counterattack mechanic in Metro Siege here.
Yeah, it's actually insane that you have like stuff like that in an arcade game where nobody like. I mean, usually with a home game, you like, oh, well, you might be able to read that in the manual and see that it's there.
Exactly.
But that was an arcade game.
Yep.
So
and literally, the game becomes like 10 times more fun when you learn of that feature. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was most of the people at the arcade never found out about it. So if I had added that feature into the game, it would have been incredibly prominent in the attract mode when the game is demoing gameplay. Like, it would have explained to the player how to do it. You know what I mean? It would have shown the joystick input, and it would have said, to block and counterattack, do this. And but at the same time, once you learn that you can do that, you can beat the game dying far fewer times. And of course, arcade games back then were designed to eat your quarters. So maybe that's part of why they didn't really advertise that move and let the players know so much.
yeah, I could see it.
But yeah, anyway, like I keep saying, I could literally talk forever. So do you want to stop now and kind of sign off?
Yeah, we'll cut it here and sign off.
All right, but thank you so much for contacting me. Thanks to everyone who was watching, fellow fans of this genre. We hope you like what you're seeing, and we really would love your feedback. For us, it's all about player feedback and making sure this game is as fun as possible, especially for people that really love the genre. But anyway, I will shut up now. Thanks so much again, and yep.
Beat 'em up to this. Beat 'em up. Beat 'em up. Beat 'em up to this. Beat 'em up to this. Beat 'em up to this.
Ready to start fighting?